Oh, hi. I was just reading up a little bit, preparing for and having some dinner and preparing for my upcoming podcast on fire and rain on SoCal Water Wars, the newsletter that I publish here on Substack. I hope you've seen some of my first few episodes. I've had some pretty good guests on. Well, next week I'm going to have another great guest on. And so I'm just going over my notes for that a little bit here. You know, figuring out what kind of questions I'm going to ask and that kind of thing. So my guess is going to be, excuse me, Kshama Sawant. And Kshama is a up and coming, very progressive politicians who would make, I think most people would probably agree, make Zohran Mamdani look rather tame. And she is a Marxist, self-described Marxist, Trotskyite, revolutionary socialist. And she served on the city council in Seattle for 10 years, starting in 2014. And her manner of getting things done is from the bottom up through through organizing at the grassroots level. She doesn't ask any favors or give any favors to so-called liberal, progressive Democrats, most of whom she considers to be pretty much, or at least effectively, sold out to the same corporations and billionaires that fund the Republicans. And an example of that you could find in this book here. I've been reading up as part of my preparatory research for the interview. It's called Homewreckers. It's how a gang of Wall Street kingpins, hedge fund magnates, crooked banks, and venture capitalists suckered millions out of their homes and demolished the American dream. This goes back to the recession, back in 2008 and so on, and the bailout conducted by George W. Bush, President Bush, and then carried on and to the detriment of millions of people who lost their homes by President Barack Obama. So this would probably be a perfect example of what she's talking about, and I'm sure we'll bring that up. So I'll ask her, exactly what is, because she's a self-described Marxist, Trotskyite, revolutionary socialist. What exactly does that mean in the context of her campaign for Congress now? She retired from the city council in 2024 to do other organizing and to run for Congress against a rather moderate Democrat. So I'll ask her what exactly, in the context of her campaign and her philosophy, is a Marxist / Trotskyite revolutionary socialist. So she's had quite a few major accomplishments during her time on the city council of Seattle. She and her movement, which is anybody, all her constituents, the people of the city, and so on, from the bottom up, grassroots level, on up, including laborers, unionists, all kinds of people. How she accomplished passing I would say, revolutionary minimum wage at the time of $15 an hour. And that came with cost of living adjustments. And so that now, baked into that legislation, is a $20 an hour minimum wage for the city of Seattle. She also battled billionaires like Jeff Bezos. to get past legislation to tax billionaires in the city and collect hundreds of millions of dollars every year to support affordable housing, publicly owned affordable housing. So imagine, we talk about in the so-called water wars a lot. I talk about affordable water and so on, and the lack of affordability. And a lot of the same issues about billionaires and so on they affect government, all types of government at all levels, including your local water district, including sometimes it's indirectly rather than directly because water districts are public agencies. They own public facilities, but there's a lot of corporate influence on there. There's also a big effort to privatize water everywhere, and maybe a bigger effort actually in the last 10, 15 years to create so-called public-private partnerships, like the one that put together an investment scheme for the Carlsbad ocean desalination plant in San Diego County, which produces some of the highest, most expensive water anywhere in the country, and has become an albatross around the necks of ratepayers and the board members of the San Diego County Water Authority and their member agencies. So they're all those influencers. So imagine, nobody who goes to these water board meetings. Usually, nobody except for business people, other politicians, and so on, and a few constituents who have specific issues. Like they want to appeal their water bill, or at the larger agencies, especially the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, it's nonprofits who come, labor officials. It's a huge agency. But I forget what the number of employees is, but it's immense. And so that's why you get that there. But your local water agency, it's usually just people pushing some kind of business idea or recommending somebody else for, some kind of corporate sponsored board to be a member of that and representing the water district. Very few people, and meetings are often held when, most of us can't show up anyways. And a lot of them are not videotaped or even audio recorded. So imagine what would happen if people who were part of a revolutionary socialist movement started showing up to these water boards at all levels. Did you know that on the Metropolitan Water District of, the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, none of the people on that board, none of the, it's 30, I forget right now, it's 28 or 30 something, can't remember off the top of my head. Members of that board are all appointed. None of them, not a single one was elected. They're appointed by city councils and water boards, local water boards, whose appointees, whose members sitting on the board often are elected, but sometimes they're not elected either. But there's these people sitting on the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, which makes the driving policies for all water districts in Southern California, that's 19 million people, is layers removed from any kind of public accountability compared to, say, your local city council, which is probably bad enough. So imagine if people started showing up. Did you know that if you've read some of my writing so far, you know that the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California and the Municipal Water District of Orange County are tight with the Department of Homeland Security and its its leadership and have honored them with a special dinner at a special water forum back in June, about halfway through all that kind of abusive neo-Nazi-like activity, brutality against immigrants and their supporters and protesters by ICE. So what does that have to do with water? Well, it has a lot to do with water because the Department of Homeland Security is concerned with national security and things that threaten national security. And it used to be, under the previous administration and before that, they were concerned with climate change. Well, and they run FEMA, which takes care of natural disasters. Well, they're gutting FEMA. They're going to leave that up to local, to the states, which won't be able to afford, a lot of them won't be able to afford handling disasters like Hurricane Katrina and so on. They're not equipped for that. And the agency, like all other federal agencies under the Trump administration, is not allowed to say anything, to even mention the term climate change. They're completely anti-scientific when it comes to the environment and a lot of other things. And their policies are antithetical to the policies, the stated policies anyways, of the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California and its master plan, which takes into account, supposedly, in theory, climate change in everything it does, as far as trying to provide a sustainable supply of water for the future under increasingly heated conditions, where there's less and less easy accessibility to water. And we're seeing that with the Colorado River right now. It's at a crisis stage. The river is it's pretty much a dead river. So you have there's all kinds of transactional politics going on at these water agencies, and most people never notice. They don't see all the things that are happening. They get an occasional report from the mainstream media detailing, certain kinds of things, detailing the drought and so on. But they don't go into which you need to do. They don't go into the weeds. There's lots of weeds in these agencies where things actually get done. Not the right things necessarily. A lot of stupid things. Some good things, but a lot of stupid things too. Imagine if you had the kind of grassroots movement that Kshama Sawant and her followers put together, just ordinary residents of the city of Seattle put together. Imagine if you had that everywhere else. Imagine if you had that at your local water board meetings or the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. I guarantee you there'd be a whole different way of doing things after a while if that could be sustained. So anyways, I will be talking to Kshama Sawant about all of that, and her campaign for Congress. And I'm hoping that this can be one small step to infusing water issues into national campaigns. I mean, hardly ever figure in any kind of campaign from the local level on up, certainly not at the national level. And she's running for Congress. So I'm hoping to get that done, at least as a first step toward making water a more front and center issue. And of course, you look at Iraq, not Iraq, but Iran. Well, Iraq too. All the Persian Gulf countries that are involved in Trump and Bibi's war now have dire water issues. Iran has just one desalination plant that supplies about 10% of its water, but all its other water supplies are severely depleted to the point that they're as before the war started, the years prior, there was violence inside the country, one faction against another. And there's a threat of violence amongst some of the Persian Gulf countries because of who's got control over the higher part of a river and builds a dam or whatever, who decides, who gets access to the water and how much. And these are pressing issues, all exacerbated by climate change, and certainly exacerbated by war. And water issues, environmental justice issues related to water figure heavily in the war in Gaza, the genocide that's taken place in Gaza, because the way the water was weaponized in that war. But water was weaponized as a method of ethnic cleansing ever since the state of Israel was formed against the Palestinians, especially in the last several decades. And that's well documented by groups like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch and many other groups. And we might talk about that a little bit too. The Israeli water companies, by the way, have a great relationship with our water districts here in Southern California, and many, I'm sure, all over the country, probably. They actually, one of their companies now, one Israeli company now owns the Carlsbad desalination plant, which is, like I said, a big economic albatross around the necks of ratepayers in San Diego County. And as a result, they're trying to get rid of this water that they never needed anyways, to the extent that they can. Much cheaper water, expensive, but much cheaper water is being produced in the process of being produced at so-called pure water wastewater treatment plants in San Diego and up in Santee and the Padre Dam, Padre Dam Municipal Water District, San Diego City, and a few others, a smaller scale. And it's happening all over. It's happening in Carson. The Metropolitan Water District of Southern California itself is going to build a 160,000 acre capacity wastewater treatment plant. And these are good projects. They're expensive too. So you can't have that and expensive plants, water production plants like the ocean desalination plant in Carlsbad that you don't need. And everybody told the people who were running the water agency, the San Diego County Water Agency, all the critics told that agency decades ago that they wouldn't need that water because wastewater treatment would come online, and conservation was then and still is, and we got a long way to go on it, the best way to increase water security. So anyways, these are issues that are important to our survival, and if you have water agencies that are, afraid to speak out against the powers that be, namely the Trump administration, afraid to speak out amongst themselves at their own meetings because of all the power politics that are played at those meetings. And, the term water buffalo really refers to water board directors elected by mostly an unknowing public who go along to get along. So they do what they're told most of the time. Not always, but most of the time. And there can be a heavy price paid for speaking out. So there's nothing to embolden a politician like people showing up at a meeting in force time and time again. And when they hear words like Marxist, Trotskyite, revolutionary socialism, whoa, I think that's going to put a little fire into their pants. It's going to make them think, if nothing else. And that, believe me, would be a major accomplishment at your local water district in general. So anyways, I hope to see you, or hope you see me and my guest Kshama Sawant next Thursday. That's April 16th at 10 a.m. Here on SoCal Water Wars on the podcast Fire and Rain. Thank you, and have a nice dinner.